The Operation Mockingbird mouthpieces in the mainstream media don't just lie with every breath. Much of what they say is actually the exact opposite of reality. It's beyond bizarre. Case in point.
I mean, but the thing about it is, one of the, things that I have noticed is that the MAGA people in general, including at the Capitol, were definitely treated differently. I mean, it does seem to me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong and talk me down if I'm wrong, that they are getting special treatment all the way down to the bottom. They've had lighter sentences, per some legal experts, than you would have gotten for assault and assaulting a police officer. Some of them have gotten months rather than years in prison. In general, I feel like they have been treated from the bottom guy all the way to Trump very, very differently than a normal person would.
Yes, Joy, that's why Joe Biggs, who is a leader in the Proud Boys, and a former InfoWars reporter, by the way, and a United States veteran, was just sentenced yesterday to 17 years in prison for the crime of peacefully walking around inside the Capitol on January 6th, while also being a member of the Proud Boys, which is basically just a men's drinking club, not much different than the Moose Lodge or the Elks. That's it. He didn't attack police. He didn't break anything. Prosecutors also said that he shook one of the 3-foot-tall temporary barricades outside of the Capitol. Stay tuned because there's plenty more to come in this video, but real quick, my Wanted for President shirt has been updated with Donald Trump's authentic mugshot photo, so order yours from my online store at markdice.com or click the link in the description below. And this is how the January 6th committee, which interrupted everybody's regularly scheduled programming during primetime television in order to lie to the American people, described the Proud Boys.
Individuals associated with two violent extremist groups have been charged with seditious conspiracy in connection with the January 6th attack. One is the Oath Keepers. The other group is the Proud Boys. They promote white supremacist beliefs and have engaged in violence with people they view as their political enemies.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to stop you there for a couple quick fact checks. The Proud Boys have been caught on camera numerous times defending themselves and others when at various events, Antifa shows up to instigate, cause trouble, and attack people. One of the most absurd lies about January 6th is the ridiculous claims that the Proud Boys are some kind of white nationalist or white supremacist or alt-right organization when, of course, the leader is Enrique Tarrio, who is obviously a person of color, who is Afro-Cuban, who is almost as dark-skinned as Benny Thompson, the chairman of the January 6th committee, who spewed the absurd lie to the American people that they're a white supremacist organization. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, because there might be one or maybe two other members of Congress, but I haven't seen them. The only person I have seen denouncing this ridiculously harsh sentence of Joe Biggs has been Marjorie Taylor Greene, who also says that the J6ers need to be pardoned. Of course, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy isn't going to denounce the political persecution of Joe Biggs or any of the January 6thers. Biggs, by the way, was denied bail, so he was in jail for the last 2.5 years, awaiting his trial for the crime of trespassing. And you may recall that Kevin McCarthy tried to throw President Trump under the bus immediately after the mostly peaceful protests that day. Remember when the Black Lives Matter movement burned down that police station in Minneapolis for George Floyd in the summer of 2020? And then went on to burn down hundreds of businesses across the country. But they did find out at least a couple of the people who were involved with that. And one of them was sentenced to 4 years in prison for burning down a police station. But Joe Biggs got sentenced to 17 years for trespassing. And back in July, a judge issued a default judgment against the Proud Boys in a civil case, which means the judge violated their 7th Amendment right to a trial by a jury. The 6th Amendment guarantees a trial by a jury in a criminal case. The 7th Amendment guarantees a trial by a jury in a civil case. But sometimes the judges can violate people's civil rights, just like they did in Alex Jones's case, denied him a trial by a jury as well in his civil case, because the Proud Boys, during an event, tore down a flag that was outside of a building that just so happened to be a church. A lot of churches in the cities are in strip malls and things like that. So there was a Black Lives Matter flag hanging. They tore it down. They burned it. And they were charged, I think, with a hate crime and then sued. And then the judge just declared them guilty and then issued a $1 million judgment against them for burning a $5 Black Lives Matter flag. Meanwhile, the city of New York decided to settle a lawsuit filed against them by Black Lives Matter protesters who were part of the George Floyd insurrection in the summer of 2020, and decided to give each one of the protesters $10,000, totaling $13 million, because they claim that the police were too mean to them. New York City agrees to pay $13 million to 2020 racial injustice protesters. That's what the Associated Press calls it, the Black Lives Matter insurrection, the Marxist insurrection, in historic class action. Yes, historically insane. That same insurrection, by the way, resulted in the fence surrounding the White House having to be doubled in height, because remember, the Marxists tried to breach the White House. Thankfully, they didn't even get into the grounds. Then they did resort to setting the church on fire across the street from the White House. And you know that if they would have gotten inside the White House, it would have ended up just like Kenosha and the dozens of other cities that Black Lives Matter touches. And so Secret Service realized that would be a major problem. And so they doubled the size of the fence. That same night, by the way, President Trump had to be ushered away inside the bunker in the White House because Secret Service were concerned that the Black Lives Matter Marxist mob might actually breach the fence and get inside the building. Of course, the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, a legal organization that claims to fight to protect people's civil rights, don't care about the January 6thers. Instead, they're too busy promoting abortion and transgender people. This is literally on their homepage. Defend the rights of all people nationwide. Abortion care, trans people, blah, blah, blah. And all this is happening because, as the liberal media reluctantly admits, Biden and Trump are in a dead heat in hypothetical 2024 rematch poll finds. This from Politico. This from CNN. The chance of Trump winning another term is very real. This from the New York Times. Biden 43%, Trump 43%, looking more closely at the registered voters who don't support Biden or Trump. So there's some people who just don't want either, but those two are in a dead heat. This is the latest cover of Time magazine. Does this ride ever end? Well, hopefully not until January 20th of 2029. And you know this is the greatest t-shirt of all time, so order yours from markdice.com or click the link in the description below. Even the original Wanted for President shirt that I made with a mock-up of Trump's mugshot before they released one when it didn't look like we were going to get one was, at the time, the greatest t-shirt ever in print. And now that it has been updated with the authentic Donald Trump mugshot, it is by far the greatest t-shirt ever made. So order yours from my online store at markdice.com or click the link in the description below and check them out.